Okay.
Welcome, Ryan Larson, CEO and founder of Data Phleet. I'm excited to have a conversation with you, Ryan, about your journey and your adventure into
Mm,
entrepreneurship and what you're doing with Data Phleet. If you want to give a brief intro and background, we could dive right in.
Absolutely. So I appreciate the intro. When it came my time to think about starting a business, this was 20 years ago, I left school, graduate school, not ever thinking that I would really be a quote unquote entrepreneur. That wasn't part of my mentality at that time. And I wish it had been. But looking back, you think, oh, I wish I'd done something differently. But what introduced me to the idea of entrepreneurship was a very dear friend of mine. We've been friends since we were 5 years old, and he had written a program for the University of Utah healthcare system that we ended up, and I won't go into the long details, but when he called me, I still remember where I was and what I was doing when he called me that very day back in 2004. It was like September 2004. And that that phone call to me from him, his name is Darren, that started my entrepreneurial journey. That was 20 plus years ago now. And ever since I now consider myself to be an entrepreneur, but it wasn't something that I planned on. It just sort of happened, and I took steps towards that effort, right? And one of a million steps every single day or every single month or week or whatever. And so here I am years later being an entrepreneur. And I didn't plan on it, leaving school, getting out of school, going to my first jobs and first part of my career. I won't say it just happened, because there's obviously a lot of things that have to go into it, but it's not something I plan to do, at
Yeah,
least initially.
it's funny how life kind of presents certain opportunities, and sometimes the universe just aligns in certain ways. When you think about your journey as an entrepreneur, even pre-entrepreneur, how do you sort of connect the dots in terms of
Yeah.
what makes an entrepreneur, and what is it that separates an entrepreneur from a non-entrepreneur?
Whoa. Okay. So I can offer up a couple of thoughts about my experience towards that question, which is a very good one. The one is, hey, I'm willing to take some chances. I'm willing to take some risks. I'm also not willing to let something go without trying to see what happens, right? I'm the kind of person that if I see something or understand or start recognizing there's an opportunity or something to do, I want to go after it and prove that either I can or can't do it. I'd rather do that than not do anything. So when Darren called me, and it's like, oh, I had a job, I had a career, I was, getting settled in with life, with family, things like that. But then I thought, well, I don't want to not try this, because then I'll always wonder if I should have. Right.
Yeah.
So there has to be a level of tolerance, risk tolerance and I'm not just talking monetary or economic risk tolerance. I'm talking about, did I want to live my life wishing I would have tried something? The same principle applies for me for cycling. And we don't have to go down into this rabbit hole, but about 15 years ago, I'd never really ridden a road bike before. But some friends of mine that were joining my healthcare company that I co-founded back in 2005 with my friend Darren, they said, Ryan, we got to get you out and go cycling. It's like, cycling? I can't even make it up a small hill, much less all these roads going up into the mountains, right? And then, you know, 10 years later, I did a 200-mile bike ride in one day, called Lodija. It's Logan, Utah to Jackson, Wyoming. Three major mountain climb passes that you have to go through, 200 plus miles in one day, and I did it. So I'm glad I took that first ride, even though it took me 6 stops to get up a mile and a half climb up, the mountain here north of me, and take that mile and a half, 6 stops to Lodija. And yeah, a couple of stops along the way for food and rehydration and things, but not because I was tired, not because I couldn't
Yeah.
keep going. So for me, I think there's two things. One, a level of risk or a level of tolerance for pushing myself to do something new or to try something new, but also that idea that I want to try it because I don't want to question whether I should have down the road if I didn't.
Bit of a regret minimization.
Yes, I would say that, but it's also I don't know how you reframe that. The opposite of that is excitement capitalization, right? Going after something, like you see something in the distance, like I can go after that and get that. I want that. I want to create that. And
Yeah.
I think the third thing I guess I could offer up is I like to be a creator. I like to create. whether it be creating product that creates opportunity, that creates value, that creates outcomes and improved conditions for the market that I'm addressing or the people that I'm engaging, right? Creation to me is a big deal. And so I think that's probably the most important. If you look at the other two, risk tolerance, wanting to regret or rue the day that I didn't do something or didn't try something. But it's that idea of creation that really
Yeah.
gets me.
Going to your background,
Yeah.
you studied English, right?
Yeah.
And then somehow you evolved and you got into tech. And so this is a big question that's coming up nowadays because
Okay.
with the proliferation of AI, I have young children, and one of my questions is, what should they be studying? What should they be studying? Math, STEM, English, political science, all of the above? And so my question is, with your background in English, why did you study English and how does that serve you? How did that serve you throughout your career? And how does it serve you today?
Yeah, great question. And there's probably some more of that question that we could also address, but I like to read and write. I enjoyed humanities. And part of the English program, the English degree was music, was literature of all kinds, right? English, American, Russian literature, things like that. I just love to, through reading and experiencing other aspects of time, of place, of culture, right? I enjoyed it. So for me, it wasn't a matter of is studying English going to help me write good emails, right? Good proposals in the workplace. I didn't think of it that way. I just enjoyed doing it. And I did minor in business, which I enjoyed. That was sort of putting the toes in the sand and making sure I could understand what a balance sheet was or what a marketing plan looked like, right? You sort of learn that stuff and then you probably forget it, or at least I did. You forget it and then go into the workplace and really experience things. For me, it was a matter of enjoyment. So when it comes to what I proved to myself, there was two things. One, I did something that I was enjoying. And then two, I did it well. So in the workplace, in my career, you may have noted I've been in healthcare. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a physician. I'm a patient in healthcare, right? But we were in healthcare with one of my previous companies with my friend Darren and that was my first foray into that industry, healthcare. And now I'm in the electric energy space. Why? Because I enjoy it. I enjoy the opportunity that we've identified and further created solutions for here in this industry because I'm doing what I enjoy, then it means I'm much more likely to succeed. So when it comes to saying, hey, what should I study? What should I do? What should I focus on? Well, just do something you enjoy. Do something you're passionate about. Because once that passion kicks in, the sky's the limit, as far as I'm concerned, if there even is a limit.
Yeah. So if you look back at your journey, Ryan, as a professional, as an entrepreneur, what are some of the things that you've done that you felt have compounded, in terms of how you've invested your effort, your attention, whether it's going into a particular industry, developing a certain
Yeah.
skill, certain mindset? What are the things that have compounded over time? Because sometimes when we make decisions about what we pour our energy into, we don't necessarily know how they're going to connect. I think it was Steve Jobs that talked about similar to what you're saying, following your passion and just trusting that it's going to connect in some way that you may not be able to see at the moment. So my question is,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you've seen compound across the decisions and areas that you put your energy into over the past?
Yeah, two things. People, and when you're passionate, people will gather around you, right? If you're passionate about something, anything, and you express that, you demonstrate that, you act on that, then you can attract wonderful people. I call them like people for my current company that we're connecting with over the last number of years and into the future. I call them tender mercies. These people that come to the table that I get introduced to or get introduced to me because I'm passionate about what I'm doing and what I'm creating and what I'm providing. There's a certain energy, there's a level of excitement. It's palpable. So passion brings people to you. And a lot of times those people will bring skill sets that I don't have. And I'm the first one to recognize and admit that I don't have them. And that's okay. Like in our current industry, I haven't had experience in the electric energy space, but I have experience with people that do. And my passion for changing the industry in a very real and very meaningful way brings them to the table. It brings their expertise to the table. It brings their skill to the table. It brings them And then with that teamwork in place, then we can accomplish what we need to. So the answer to your question, passion, for me, it brings people to the table. And amongst those people that come, then I have the wherewithal to actually do what I want to do.
Yeah, so investing in people is something that's really important.
Yeah.
It also sounds like just knowing yourself, right? And what your strengths and maybe where
Yes.
some of the gaps might be.
Yeah, I'm the first one to admit if I don't know something, I don't know it. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because I know people that do. I will be the first one to share with our subject matter experts in the industry, in our current industry, for example, and our partners. Hey, what is this? What does that mean? And to some, they may feel, and I've felt this way before too, it may feel like I'm stupid, right? Like I shouldn't be in this industry because I don't know those things. No, that's okay. That's okay. Just admit that you don't know them and ask. And there's no ego here, right? Be a little bit humble, recognize what you do and don't know, what you can and can't do. And then again, with that passion that you still express about what you're doing, people will come to the table. People will be attracted to you as a person, to what you're doing. And they willingly offer their help, their expertise, their skill, because they see that in you. And also being humble helps as well. You don't
Yeah.
come to the table with a lot of ego. You come to the table with a lot of questions and
Yeah.
seeking some help.
It sounds like a large part of the value that you bring to the table, Ryan, is the ability to bring people together, to bring
Hmm. Yeah,
experts together, to ask questions that maybe people are not asking, and to kind of connect the dots among the team.
yeah,
And it kind of goes back to my question, right? Like, so nowadays we have this thing in our pocket that can effectively be an expert in anything. Maybe I would love your thoughts on this. Like, maybe the new expertise is the ability to bring expertise together in a meaning and compelling way. What are your thoughts
yeah.
on that?
So yes, if you're talking about like something like this, right?
Yeah, yeah,
You got instant access to all kinds of information. However, what that phone doesn't give me is instant access to the person, to you, Eric. I mean, I can get you on a phone call, right? But if I'm asking a question of Chat GPT, which is a good thing to do, I'm all for that, right? But I'm very much about the relationship side of the expertise as well. There's something about being either in person or with people, or for example, on a call like this one with you, Eric. There's something about the interaction that you and I take. We aren't nearly as smart as ChatGPT. We can't access all of the data that provides us, right? We just can't do that. In
right.
100 lifetimes, we can't do that. But what ChatGPT can't do for us is help us become friends necessarily. And with that friendship, again, with you at the table, for example, you and I becoming friends, you and I exploring opportunities, ways that we can help each other just from this podcast and getting to know each other here. That's phenomenal. And I don't replace people with Chat GPT. Now, again, you can go to AI. I'm very much for technology. That's what we do, right? We're
Yeah,
using machine learning and AI. So I'm very much for it. But the point is, I still depend and need relationships. I need people to be at the table, not just AI, not just machine learning, not just technology.
yeah, yeah. This is a nice segue, Ryan. Let's talk about the Data Fleet. You've been
Okay.
working on this now for 4.5 years.
four
You're in
years,
stealth
4 years.
4 years,
Yeah,
largely in stealth mode, and you guys are in a bit of a transition now as you
we
are
are.
going to market. And
Yeah.
maybe give me a little bit of background of what you've been doing over the past 4 years and why stealth mode?
Good question. So a couple of reasons, but let me start from the beginning here. I went talking about relationships, the importance of relationships. One of the folks that worked for me at my healthcare company, I hired at a subsequent company that I was the president of in between healthcare and energy. And so I hired him because he was a great employee. And we went on a business trip together, but he had found a biological brother that he did not know he had.
Hmm,
So, again, speaking of these relationships, we had dinner in Denver with this brother, and this brother has been and is in the electric energy space for 35 plus years. So over a 4 hour dinner or so, he proceeded to share with us the pains that he was experiencing with respect to compliance in the electric energy industry. And so I was sitting there just having a great time watching my friend get to know his brother and meeting him in person to
mhm,
person for the first time. And so I walked away from that thinking, holy cow, okay, maybe there's an opportunity here. Again, going back to the idea of creation and identifying something and wanting to do a little bit more research before I just say, no, I don't want to do that. Well, over a period of a number of months following that initial meeting and that initial introduction to the pain of compliance in the energy space, that's what was the source or the genesis of Data Phleet, which is my company now that we are automating compliance checks specifically in the electric energy space. We're using machine learning, AI, to take hundreds of hours and turn it into a second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, right? Even milliseconds. But we're using that technology to do this. So in terms of us with Data Fleet, we were focusing our efforts on solving that pain. So let me make sure I'm answering your question. Let's go back to the question. Will you please re-ask it? Because I wanted to give you a little bit of a soundbite on what the genesis of Data Fleet was, and then get to the point where I could answer your question too.
Yeah. Yeah. So want to get a sense of what how does stealth mode work? Why
Okay.
stealth
Yeah.
mode? And now you're in a transition. How are you navigating that transition?
Yeah. So stealth mode, we stayed in stealth mode for a while because nobody else was doing it yet. So we knew we had a little bit of time. We didn't want to stay in stealth mode any longer than we had to, but it was good for us to be able to prove to ourselves that we could do it. So we did proofs, we did scoping. We engaged with some development team effort, right? And myself and a co-founding partner, his name's Kevin, but we got our wits about us. We did our research, we did our homework, we did our, what's the pain, what's the value of the pain? If we provide a solution, how should we solve that pain? And now we know all of that pain. We get it. We understand it completely, effectively, and we know what we're doing to resolve that pain. But we had to figure all that out. So stealth mode allowed us to take a decent amount of time to figure our things out. I'm very much into the lean model of business startups where we didn't spend much, right? We were spending very little. We were doing everything we could on our own, asking
Mhm.
the right questions, going out and connecting with people in the industry, just getting a feel from them. Later on in that stealth mode stage, doing focus groups and things like that could help us pinpoint what we needed to provide in terms of a solution. And now here we are 4 years later. It's been a long or short 4 years, depending on how you look at it. But here we are 4 years later, coming out of stealth mode in a big way for a number of reasons. One, we've done our homework. We know what the pain points are. We know what the industry is facing. And
Mhm.
we know, even just as importantly, that the solution that we're offering actually does what we say it can do. That's key because once I know, for my personality, it's hard for me to sell vaporware. I just can't do it. It's just, to me, it's dishonest. It's not ethical if you're selling vaporware, and there's different levels of that. And this call certainly isn't to go into that kind of a rabbit hole. But for me, to sell something that I know works is a game changer. And we know what we're doing works. That's why we're out of stealth mode in a full measure this year. We're attending multiple conferences and presenting at as many of them as I can in the coming weeks and months about what we do as a company because the pain exists and we know that our solution directly addresses that pain. It resolves it.
And the pain is there's a lot of manual
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
that that could be automated, it sounds like, right, with
Mhm.
respect to compliance. And so during stealth mode, how did you determine when is the right time to come out of stealth mode? And when is enough in terms of
Yeah.
market validation, product market fit? Were you able to land paid customers during that time?
We did. Yeah, we had paid customers that came in during this time as well for the last 3 years. In fact, for the last 3.5 years, we've had paid customers come in from time to time as we've done some more pilot work and things like that were paid pilots and whatnot. So yeah,
Okay.
we've got some paying customers. So it isn't completely zero revenue time, but it hasn't been that, the hockey stick growth that entrepreneurs like to see at the right time and the
Yeah.
right places. But in terms of, for me, it was, I really don't like to say this, but it was a feeling. It was a gut feeling, an instinct. It's like, okay, now is the time. And I don't like that because that's not a school book description of when you should come out of stealth mode. But again, we did know our market. We had a product market fit.
Yeah.
We had phenomenal response from initial pilot clients that loved the stuff. They paid for it. They loved it. They gave us that feedback. We did the focus groups. So there's a number of little things that added up to saying, okay, we're ready. We're ready to get out of stealth mode. But then even then, I waited, quite frankly, till I felt like it was the right time. And You could say, well, January 1, 2026, that's a new year. It's perfect time for coming out of stealth mode. Well, actually, we didn't really come out of stealth mode till February 2nd, because that's when we started investing more in outreach. And that's when we started some weekly press releases and weekly product announcements that we're now undertaking. So really, it was February before we started coming out of stealth mode, not January 1. So I guess, Eric, the best question is, yeah, we did a number of things, or the best answer for your question, we did a number of things to prepare us to come out of stealth mode, but then ultimately it was the feeling, is now the right time. And it was an overwhelming yes, now is the right time. Because if we don't do it now, we're going to wish we had down the road. That was,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. That no, it's I think a lot of times, especially in the West, I think we kind of minimize the power of intuition or gut, right? And I think I think there's a wisdom in that, not discounting it. I think there's a wisdom in tapping into your intuition, even though it
Yeah,
may not be completely, how do you say, maybe entirely logical in
logical.
some sense.
It
Yeah.
has to be coupled with logical aspects of your growth or your efforts, right? You have to couple intuition with, it's almost like for us the foundation was, we know the pain, we know the product, the solution works. We know people in the industry through which and with whom we can work to get into the industry, right? We have a number of things in place that would help us get there, but then it was that the icing on the cake was the gut, was the intuition. Okay, these
Yeah.
things are in play, they're there. Now it's time to go. And that's when the feeling came. It's like, okay, now we're ready.
Yeah, yeah. Now looking back, the past 4 years, any learnings that came out of that,
Eh,
man, I wish I kinda knew that, going into it 4 years ago. Any surprises or learnings that things you would have done differently?
You know, that's a good question. I'll actually include some of my time with my healthcare company because that was my first entrepreneurial effort starting back in 2005. And there was a lot of learning because I hadn't been through it before. I didn't know about product market fit. We did our best. We just thought, oh, it's the Wild West. Here we go. We're just going to do whatever we can and we hope it works, right? We didn't do a lot of focus groups. We didn't do any of that kind of stuff. We didn't do the lean business startup model stuff in perpetuity like we had done this time around. Not that we've been perfect, but this time around, it was a matter of, okay, I'm remembering what I learned previously with my healthcare company. So at least I can avoid some of those mistakes. So learning from the past, right? But also, if anything, I look back and think, you hear about these overnight successes, right? That take 10 years, right? So it's the folks that say, well, it was an overnight success. Yeah, it just took 10 years to get to that overnight success. Data Fleet, which is my current company in the energy space, it's taken us a good amount of time to be in stealth mode, to do that ramp up, to get ready for launch, major launches like we're doing now. I used to be impatient, and I think I still am to a certain extent. I can be very impatient with things. But if I've learned anything, it is the following. One, to do your homework, to do the research, because so many companies spend so much time and so much money doing things that actually don't pan out. It's that 80/20 rule. Spend 80% of your time initially researching, talking to people, finding out. And this, you can do this on your own. You don't even have to hire a focus group company to do this for you, right? You don't want to spend money on doing this kind of stuff. Do it yourself. Get out in front of people, ask the questions that engage them. And then lo and behold, you'll find yourself defining and fine tuning what you may be able to provide as an organization to the industry that you're looking at. So do the research, do the homework, ask the questions, figure out, one, is there really a pain point that they're willing to pay something for to resolve? And if there is, what causes it? How much is it? Like, what are they trying to avoid? What would they love to avoid? And then, okay, what tech is available, or what resources, I should say is a better word, what resources are available to me to provide a solution? For example, the tech that we're using now in Data Fleet didn't exist 4 years ago. So what we're
Mm,
doing now with our launch, we couldn't have done 4 years ago, even if the market was ready for it and we knew we could do it. But we really didn't, because the tech wasn't available to us. It's accelerating so quickly that now we can do what we're doing. So we actually
yeah.
had to grow into, or the tech had to come along with us and be ready for what we wanted to do in the marketplace. So
You know that,
take the time to do the research, to do this, the startup stuff, right? And for
yeah,
me, it's been a matter of learning patience, quite frankly, Eric. I've had to
yeah.
learn patience.
All right. So now you guys are, what was the date? February 2nd, you said?
It was like February 2nd. Yeah.
Official launch. Okay, so you guys are go to market now, putting a lot of energy into
Yeah.
getting your product into the right hands. You're going to conferences. What do you anticipate being the big challenge now, and sort of the mindset shift from going to from stealth to full on launch?
Well, the mindset shift now is signing deals. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
we're going to keep developing. Obviously, we're always going to be developing and improving and providing new solutions based on the compliance engine that we've created and we're creating. But right now, it's that transition from a development, or I should even say, a researching, engineering mentality, right? Getting stuff ready for the market. To now, it's, oh no, now we're in the market. Now we're signing deals. Now we're delivering. Now we're onboarding. You and I both know, Eric, and hopefully folks on this that listen to this podcast recognize as well. It's a lot easier to keep clients and make money off of existing clients than it is to lose and replace those with new clients. Ideally, what you want to do is keep all of your clients, right? And then add new ones every quarter, every month, every year, every 3 years, whatever the case may be. But so now we're transitioning from that engineering mentality to sales, signatures, onboarding mentality. And that's even, I can't say it's more important than engineering, because if we didn't engineer, we wouldn't have the product. But the point is, that's the important transition for our company right now. Sales,
So
onboarding.
so in the past, Ryan, you've built 98% retention businesses. Like
Yeah.
what did you learn
Yeah.
from that? What's the what creates loyalty among clients?
The relationships. I mean, that's number one. And there's a number of things that play into that. So, for example, we've got to address and resolve their pain. So, the product that we provide has to be priced right, priced well for the value prop, right? That's both an art and a science. We can go into that in some more detail if you want, but that's an interesting play there, is how to price your solution so that it makes sense for everybody in the marketplace. But it's got to do that, but at the same time, just like I'm honest and I try to be as humble as possible with people that I work with, partners, internal employees, things like that, people like that, I've got to be that way with the customer. I've got to be honest with them, truthful, right? I've got to say, you know what? We can't do that yet. And I'm not going to sell you vaporware, but this is what we can do. And 3 months from now, see, for me, sticking to a schedule is very important. Sticking to the expectations that we set with our customers. Certainly rather set the expectation that we're not going to deliver something they need, then tell them we are and then not, right? So the onboarding, the relationships are what set companies apart from others. I can't rely on large language models to establish the relationship with the customer that's going to make a difference for them and for me. That's me. That's Data Fleet employees. That's Data Fleet partners.
Yeah.
It's got to be the relationships and the product that follows and the onboard that follows and the check-ins that follow to make sure that the product is doing for the client what they need it to do. All of that stems from the outreach that says, Eric, hello. It's good to have you on a call again. How is the product doing for you? What are you seeing coming down the pipe? What have you experienced in the last 3 months? Those kinds of conversations. I'm not going to use ChatGPT to replace me for that kind of a
Yeah.
conversation.
Ryan, how does your approach to relationship building externally with clients, for example, how does that translate in terms of your relationship and team building and culture building for your team?
It's the same. It's the same. The same way I treat my team internally is the same way I treat my teams, my people, the people externally, right? There's a couple of big characteristics or qualities I adhere to. One is transparency, and two, accountability. If I am transparent, appropriately so, right? There are some things we shouldn't and we need to keep closer to the chest, right? But if I'm transparent, practicing these behaviors, transparency and accountability, with my internal teams, I'm going to do the same with everybody on the outside of the company as well, simply because I should. So those types of behaviors, honesty as well, but transparency and accountability lead to fantastic outcomes, because then people know what the expectations are. And I know that they do that. I know they know those expectations. So we've got to work together to meet those. Or we pivot and change the narrative and reset those expectations when we have to, right? Not every expectation is going to be met in the initial way it was understood. But the point is, I don't treat people differently, whether they're on the inside of the walls of our company, the virtual walls of our company, or the outside. It's the same.
Yeah. What are some of the things you've learned, Ryan, in terms of team building over the past 4
Mm,
years, or even just your career that,
yeah, yeah. You've got to give through accountability, through transparency, setting expectations and deliverables, outcomes. You've got to create as many reasons as you can to celebrate. Meaning, so for example, let's say you and I are working together, Eric, and I expect you, and we sit down, we strategize your first 90 days of employment and your ongoing 90 days of employment, right? Every 90-day rolling period is an ongoing 90 days of employment. But what is expected of you? What are you going to deliver? How do you do that? Do you have access to the resources to do that? Because it's sort of stupid if I say, Eric, you need to do this, and then I don't give you the resources to do it. Well, that's a no start.
yeah,
The point is, I want to create reasons to celebrate and make them meaningful. So, for example, a client onboard. If we go through that process, we get it done well. We have the expectations set up front. We know what's happening. We know the time schedule, things like that. Let's not just deliver the product and call it good. Let's deliver the product as well as have some pizza delivered. Let's celebrate together. Let's have a good time on a virtual call or in person, as the case may be. But let's create reasons, meaningful reasons for all of us to celebrate together because we as humans like to celebrate. We like recognition. We like celebration. We like to smile and laugh and pat each other on the back every once in a while. Not letting it go to our heads, right? Not doing something and then thinking we're all that and more. But the point is, let's give ourselves reason to celebrate and to have some fun while we're doing all this stuff.
yeah. A lot of times we forget to take a breath, to pop our head up, and to pat ourselves on the back for what we've accomplished. We're just too forward looking, and sometimes we need a reminder to be in the present, right? And that celebration can remind us of that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think one of the best, just a little point on this, one of the best things
yeah,
I've learned to do is, for example, when we go into a client and say, hey, we've got this solution, once the client makes a decision to try it and to go with it, for example, we know that that's a big deal, right? That's a big deal because in a measure, they're staking their name on that decision. If they're the one that signed the deal, right? There's a
okay,
lot riding on that. If we were not to deliver, then not only does it affect our business, but it affects that person or that committee that made that decision in their business. So one of the best things we can do is one, deliver well, right? Onboard, deliver well, create that value for the client that they paid for and they're paying for. But two, recognize in front of his or her peers the person that made the decision, the stakeholder within the client. So that's one of the things we did at our healthcare company. It's one of the things we'll be doing here as well, is recognizing the successes that we create together, but also recognizing the individuals that helped us create those successes at the client location.
yeah. Let me ask you this, Ryan. To transition from one industry, healthcare, into
Mhm.
energy, it seems like quite a leap and quite a learning curve.
Yeah.
Did you have any concerns about making that transition? Because it sounds like you guys, when you had that dinner, like there was some sort of inspiration about the pain that was it Darren that he was
Yeah.
describing.
Yeah. At the dinner, it was a guy by the name of Nick
Nick, okay.
and his brother Richard that he discovered through a DNA test type thing, right? So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But it seems like I mean you built this healthcare company. I would imagine you developed some deep
Oh, for healthcare.
expertise in that industry. For you to kind of make a transition into an entirely new industry that it sounds like you didn't have much experience in, it seems
Mhm.
like you're kind of maybe you just walk me through that. Like how was it? It doesn't seem like it seems like you develop a core competency in an area you kind of want to build on that. But to go
Yeah.
from healthcare to energy, what was the rationale behind that or the feeling?
Great question. So the rationale was pain, right? I saw pain. I saw opportunity from that pain. And then I asked, again, being more of a humble person towards something that I don't know and recognize I don't know, I did a lot of homework. I did a lot of research. I asked a lot of questions. That's really one of the most important things you can do. Asking questions endears people to you because, especially those that are subject matter experts in the space, if I'm very upfront with them, I've experienced so far to date, I've experienced the fact that if I'm very upfront saying, "Hey, I don't get this. I don't understand this. Will you please help me understand it?" That's okay. That's okay because I have that passion to resolve or solve and provide a solution for their pain. I'm going after it. And so just because I don't know the things that they know doesn't mean I can't provide a solution for the pain that they feel. But it has to be based on those relationships and developing those. So yes, I was hesitant to say the least about, wow, what do I know about electric energy? What do I know? What can I understand? How fast can I learn this stuff? 4 years later, I'm not a subject matter expert. I can't go on to, although I've been on at site locations, looking at substations and those types of locations now, and I know to stay far enough away from some of the wires so I don't get zapped, right? But I'm still not a subject matter expert, but I know enough to have conversations. And more importantly, I know enough people that are willing to partner with Data Fleet that bring that skill, that expertise, that knowledge to our table.
And maybe the other thing too that I'm hearing is that you know enough to understand and to credibly empathize with the
Yes.
pain that these folks are experiencing. So when they're talking
Yeah.
about the pain of manual processes or underutilized talent or resources, you can understand and empathize credibly with that pain. And I think it feels like that builds credibility with them, right?
It does. One of the things I've done before is I have type 1 diabetes. So I rely on an insulin pump. Obviously, everything we have, everything we're using relies on electricity. So for me and for all of us, electricity is a very necessary thing. We've got to have it. We've got to have it. So anything Data Fleet can do, and I can do as part of Data Fleet to help make the delivery of electricity over the bulk electric system more secure, more reliable. There's a reason I want it. There's a reason I need that electricity because it affects my life in a very real way. And all of us. I'm not the only one, certainly. But yeah, again, if you come to the table recognizing your lack of understanding, but you're asking questions to get there, that's a
Mhm.
big deal. And I think that goes a long way demonstrating to other people that are around that proverbial table that, hey, I don't know everything, and that's okay, but I'm going to ask some questions so I can get to know it better. And I'm going to rely on you, please help when I need some help.
Yeah, that's awesome. Ryan, it was awesome talking with you. I'm excited about 2026 for Data Fleet
So am
and
I.
your guys's launch. And it sounds like you have a bunch of conferences you got lined up. You'll be speaking at. So really
Yeah.
excited to see what's in store for you guys over the next 12 months.
Thank you,
And
Eric.
I guess any parting insights or guidance to our audience out there, especially the folks that are considering their careers, folks that are considering maybe starting their own company, and how they might be able to build something on this amazing new technology that's proliferating.
I'd say be courageous enough to take the chances. And you don't have to take a lot of monetary chances up front. If you think of an idea, if you hear of something that sort of oh, that could be an opportunity that I could look at, go ahead and do some homework. Go ahead and do some research. It costs you some time. It doesn't have to cost you hardly any money to at least get a start as to looking at a possible entrepreneurial opportunity that you could undertake and go for it. What can you lose? A little bit of time. I get it, right? Maybe a little bit of money. But and there's more to be said about the lean process, startup model. It's out on the internet. You can find it. You can find people. You're welcome. If anybody has questions for me, they're welcome to email or reach out to me and I can point them in the right directions there as well. But the point is, if you see a possible opportunity, at least do some digging and decide whether or not it really is. Because entrepreneurs help create jobs. Entrepreneurs help establish value in marketplaces. Entrepreneurs help bring other people to the table that can create something beyond what even the entrepreneur initially thought was possible. Right. So once you get all those minds and those passions and those skill sets, if you will, at the table, anything's possible. If you even if you don't think you're an entrepreneur, you still may be one. So go for it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. We'll put your contact information and your LinkedIn profile in the show notes. And thank you, everyone out there, for listening. We'll talk
Thank
to you
you.
soon.
Appreciate it, Eric.
Thanks, Ryan.